Actors, we've all got issues, so let's talk about them. You're listening to Actors with Issues, a self-help podcast for actors, by actors. Hello, ladies, gents, and non-binary friends. Welcome to another episode of Actors with Issues, the self-help podcast for actors, by actors. We're back with another bite-sized interview with special guests from TV, film, and Broadway. I am your host, Juan Ayala, and joining us today is an actress you've seen on stage and on screen, from Broadway's Mamma Mia to the CW's Heart of Dixie, voiceover roles in iconic video games like Star Wars: The Old Republic, excuse me while I nerd out, and most recently working alongside Paul Rudd, Kate Mara, and Tim Robinson in A24's new dark comedy, Friendship. Brandi Burkhardt, thank you so much for being here. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
So I'm curious, what was life like growing up? When did little Brandi know that she wanted to be an actress? Was it sort of early on for you, or did that sort of discovery come a bit later?
I think I always secretly wanted to be a performer, but I was a very shy girl. I grew up in Baltimore, Pasadena, Maryland, actually, right outside of Baltimore. And I guess it wasn't until really high school and my stepfather went over to measure the stage at our high school, and then I had said something about wanting to audition for the play, and then I chickened out. Like I was shaking like a leaf. And my mom and my stepfather made me do it. And they said, "You're going to regret it if you don't just do it." And I about peed my pants. But I got up there and I did it, and it was miserable. But they cast me in a very small role. And that was like when I first started getting my legs under me. And then I did pageants. And I was actually a piano player, and a singer would always beat me. And so I was like, oh, I'm going to try singing because they seem to like that better than my piano playing.
Mhm.
And then I guess a marriage of the two, when I was getting good feedback from it, I was like, oh, maybe I'm good at this and I should keep pursuing it. So, and it also felt like some way for me to hide in a strange way behind characters. So, yeah, it was an interesting beginning for me, but I think it was the positive reinforcement that I got from audience members and especially my family because they would definitely be honest with me.
Yeah. You can always count on your family for some brutal honesty.
Oh
They
yeah,
don't beat around the bush.
for sure.
And in hindsight, is there something that comes to mind that you know now about the pursuit of an entertainment career, about acting itself, that you wish you could sort of go back in time and tell young Brandi?
Oh, I mean, I think people tried to tell me, but it's mostly stop auditioning to be the you that everyone's expecting you to be. Like
Mm.
I've always been trying to fit into something. Whereas I need to kind of make myself known. And I think that's been what my journey's been about, really. Putting on characters has been an effort for me too to discover my own voice. I think my perfectionism is something that could get in the way of, yeah, of my creativity. Yeah.
Yeah, because so much you go into an audition room and you these days you turn on your camera for your self-tape and you're like, okay, I'm gonna be exactly what they're looking for instead of bring as much of myself to the role. And I feel like once I learned that, probably a year or two into the pandemic, I was like, oh, it was just such an eye-opening type of thing. It's like, well, don't try and be the role and fit that exactly. It's rather just bring out the parts of you that already fit that and then fill in the blanks, you know?
It's funny too, because when we used to go into the room, I used to feel more able to, I guess I used to say it was by osmosis, kind of understand what it was that we were doing, but it was also an opportunity to be myself in the room with other people, which I really miss.
Yeah.
Because I really love that collaboration. And I really did feel like I get to understand the project better sitting in a room with somebody than kind of reading it on the page and just kind of guessing for myself. So I mean, I think now when I'm auditioning on camera, when I do self tapes, it just really is important to have a good reader with me who can make moments. Yeah.
I I personally always hated sort of going into the city to read one line. You have to sort of set aside a couple of hours for all of that. But I do miss when if it was a slightly larger role, and they always ask any questions before we start. And if you actually did have a question about the project, you had the opportunity to ask. Now with self tapes, it's you could maybe send an email to casting, but you're lucky if you get a response back because they're so busy and getting tapes in constantly. It's such a different dynamic. And what have you noticed? I'm curious, what have you noticed has changed about the industry, whether it is the audition process or the amount of content and opportunity out there, over the last like 5 years or so, pretty much like since before COVID to now.
Well, it seems like there's more opportunity than ever,
Mhm.
because there's so many more outlets. That said, I think viewership is so scattered around, so it's hard to figure out where. Like I'm always surprised to learn of the new thing that people are interested in. Because I go through, I'll like keep my Netflix subscription for a while, and then I'll go into another
Yeah.
streamer, and then I'll check out what's over there, and then I'll miss something, and then I have to go back and
Mhm.
um but yeah, I think it's that just keeping up with how much content there is available.
And we often get pretty often. I just said often twice. This is what editing's for. We'll just chop that out.
Well, good, that makes me feel better.
So we have what we call sort of the $1 million question, which is one of the most commonly asked questions from young actors who are like fresh out of college or their conservatory, and they've got their headshot and their resume, and they're just like, now what? I've got a monologue, I've got great technique, I've got all this education, but how do I get the ball rolling on my career? And so many young actors ask about that on these like online forums and things like that. And whenever we sort of ask folks like, submit your questions for our guests, and one of the biggest ones is always like, how do I get an agent? How do I audition? What now, basically? What advice do you have for a young actor out there who's sort of wondering like, how do they get that ball rolling on their career?
That is the $1 million question for
Yeah.
sure. And I think it happens for everyone differently. For me, I got my first agent because I was Miss New York. And then I wound up leaving NYU, because I had opportunity. Um, but I think that it requires you knocking on a bunch of doors and taking every opportunity you can when you first start, just to make your community and to find where you fit in and to really share your gifts. You kind of have to toss it all out there and see what comes back to you. And I think there's just also this sense that you have to have of like, yeah, I can do this. Yeah, I can do this. And you have to wake up with that enthusiasm every day. And I'm saying that every day, but every day it's going to be a little different, the amount of enthusiasm you have. Some days you just have to rest. But to keep getting up and be interested in your craft and be honing that all the time, I think it's really important to be interested in learning something and then offering that to people. So it's not about what I can get and where I can find what suits me. It's more about what I have in my hands to offer and where can I give it. I think
Mhm.
there's this like, perception switch there that's really helpful. Um, yeah, and I think that's that's the only way to go about it, because I wish there was a simpler method.
And fast forwarding to today with the movie Friendship, as I said before we were recording, I didn't know what to expect with this movie because you've got these hilarious actors. You've got Tim Robinson and Paul Rudd. But then you have A24 behind it. You're like, well, they don't really do comedies. And then the marketing, the trailer was like, wait, is this like a Lifetime thriller? Like that's what it felt like. In
Oh,
the
that's
best, I mean that in the best way possible, because it really is like, wait, like it's just you had no idea what to expect. You're like, this is either going to be hilarious, creepy, or an amalgamation of both. And I'm curious with um, these past roles that you've had before, all of these experiences, how did some of those apply to your role in Friendship?
It's funny because I expected going in a different situation. I mean, I kind of was um, open for anything because I was like, well, how much of this is actually going to be the script and how much is going to be improv? So you kind of like remain open, but you kind of wind up, or I was like falling back on old kind of habits, like, okay, well, this is my game plan. If I don't seem to know what's going on,
Mhm.
when you're in a room with some really great talent, it can be intimidating. Um, but it was such a wonderful open set that at times I kept asking the director, like, why are you allowed to do this? Like, how did they let you do this? It didn't feel corporate at all. It felt very creative and alive, and like they were making something. And that was really exciting. It was also cool to be involved in a comedy where you weren't like doing the comedy. It was kind of just all there. And I was like, wait, did we do it?
Was that
Okay.
funny?
I know, I didn't know.
Yeah.
And it's kind of it was kind of a breath of fresh air to work like that, and to trust the director. I mean, he had a vision and he certainly accomplished it. I'm so excited that everybody's liking it.
And I also want to touch quickly on your time on Broadway and if that continues to be something that you're sort of actively going for. Do you want to return to Broadway? No, Mamma Mia is coming back. So is there a world where you sort of rejoin the show in a new role, possibly?
Well, I always said that I hoped Mamma Mia would stay open so that I could play Donna. I thought the original one would stay open. It's kind of bittersweet because like going back to the Taverna would be so wonderful. But I think I'd miss a lot of the people who made it special for me the first time around. Although that said, I would still go back. I mean, that show is a blast to do, even when you're like the eighth show of the week and you're like, I can't do it anymore. The music starts and you're like, da 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 da
Yeah.
da da. Like, you can't help. It's infectious. So, yeah, I mean, I would definitely do another run on Broadway. We'll see what's in the cards.
And before we go, one of our question we ask for every interview, we always cap it off with this, is in 10 words or less, what advice would you give to a young actor?
There's no such thing as making it. You're always making it. You're always
Mhm.
creating every day. Get up and make it every day. There's no such thing as you got there and you've made it.
Yeah, I love that. I had this this one interview always sticks out to me of the many I've done, but I got to speak with Patina Miller a couple of years ago. Tony winner for Pippin and was in Sister Act and all of that. And she said that, she's now number one on the call sheet for a show on Stars and has been on it for several seasons now. And even she said, she's like, when I was doing Madam Secretary, I and I knew that show was ending, I was sort of panicking. I go, what's next? Do I go back to Broadway? Do I try and develop something? And then now she's number one, and she's still like, what if the show gets canceled? What's next? She's like, there's never like, I've made it, I'm satisfied, I'm good. There's always that next step. And as exhausting as it sounds, we are just on the ride. It's like a thrill chase for actors to get to that
Well,
point
it's really
of retirement or whatever ends is the end goal.
I don't even know if retirement's the end goal. I mean, I think for me, I have to stay interested and I have to have something an outlet for my creativity, which is actually partially why I'm releasing this EP, which is my own music that I've put so much of my heart and soul in. They're called Back in Time, but the whole EP is called Just Like This because it's kind of like me coming into myself and sharing myself really, coming out from behind the roles and just being myself. It's all music that is original that I've written, and I'm so excited to share it.
Awesome. Well,
Yeah,
Brady, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us and for joining us today. If anyone wants to give you a follow on social, where can they find you?
at Brandi Burkhardt on Instagram.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Brady. Pleasure to meet you.
You too.
Thanks for joining us. Actors with Issues is hosted and produced by Juan Ayala. If you enjoyed today's episode, subscribe to our YouTube channel or on the podcast platform you're listening to. Visit actorswithissues.com for exclusive news and reviews, and give us a follow on Instagram and TikTok at Actors with Issues.